the space between black and white. I used to believe life came with clear answers. People were either kind or selfish. Decisions were either right or wrong. Relationships either worked or they did not. I remember how confidently I could make up my mind about someone after a single conversation or judge a situation from the outside with complete certainty. It all felt wonderfully simple. Sorry. The world fit into neat little boxes, and I was convinced I knew exactly where everything belonged. Somewhere along the way, life quietly dismantled that certainty. It did not happen in one dramatic moment. It happened through friendships that survived difficult conversations, colleagues who surprised me, people I had misunderstood, mistakes I wish I could revisit, and choices that only made sense years later. Today, I find myself spending much more time in the space between black and white. It is an uncomfortable place sometimes, but it is also where understanding seems to live. When the story changes after you've lived it, there are, there are decisions I took, there are decisions I look back on now and wonder how I could have ever made them. Jobs I should have left sooner, conversations I should have handled differently, relationships I should have understood better. Looking backward, the answers appear embarrassingly obvious, as though the ending had always been visible. That is the quiet trick of hindsight bias. Once we know how something turned out, our brains convince us that we knew it all along. We forget just how uncertain life felt in that moment. Recognizing this has made me kinder to my younger self. She was not making bad decisions. She was making the best decision she could with the information she had. The people I judged too quickly. There are people I dismissed years ago because they seemed cold, impatient, and difficult. Then life handed me similar pressures: tight deadlines, family responsibilities, health concerns, sleepless nights. Suddenly, I found myself behaving in ways I never imagined I would. The certainty with which I had judged others began to dissolve. Behavioral science calls this the fundamental attribution error. We tend to explain others' behavior through their personality while explaining our own through circumstances. Experience has taught me that circumstances matter far more than we realize. Often, what looks like arrogance is exhaustion. What looks like indifference is fear. Life becomes gentler when we leave room for explanations we cannot immediately see, when everyone thinks they're right. Some of the biggest disagreements in my life were never about facts, they were about perspective. Two people could witness the same conversation, remember it differently, and both feel completely certain they were right. Earlier in life, found that deeply frustrating. Now, I find it fascinating. That is where naive realism offers an important insight. We naturally assume we see the world as it really is, while others are biased or mistaken. The older I get, the less interested I become in proving I am right, and the more curious I become about why someone else sees the same situation so differently. Curiosity has resolved more conflicts in my life than certainty ever did. More than one answer can be true. I used to search for the correct answer, the best career, the right parenting style, the perfect relationship. Somewhere along the way, I realized that life rarely rewards certainty. More often, it rewards adaptation. Different choices can lead to equally meaningful lives, and people can reach the same destination through entirely different paths. The shift reflects cognitive flexibility. It is our ability to update our thinking as new experiences reshape what we know. It is less about changing our opinion for the sake of it and more about accepting that reality is richer than our original assumptions. The willingness to rethink has become one of the most valuable skills I have acquired, even if it arrived much later than I would have liked. Holding two truths at the same time. One of the hardest lessons adulthood has taught me is that people are rarely just one thing. Someone can love you deeply and still hurt you. A leader can inspire a team and still make poor decisions. A friend can disappoint you without being a bad person. Holding those contradictions usually used to feel impossible. The ability is described in behavioral science as the concept of integrative complexity. It reflects our capacity to recognize multiple valid perspectives and hold them together instead of reducing everything to simple opposites. I have come to believe that wisdom is less about finding certainty and more about becoming comfortable with complexity. The world has not become more confusing. I have simply stopped expecting it to be simple. Life has not moved from certainty to confusion. It has moved from certainty to curiosity. Each of these ideas points towards the same quiet transformation. Less quickly, we question our assumptions more often. We recognize how incomplete our own perspective can be. We discover that certainty is comforting, but understanding is far more useful. Perhaps that is why, perhaps that is what growing older is really giving us. Not more answers, but better questions. We stop looking for heroes and villains, winners and losers, perfect choices and fatal mistakes. Instead, we begin to notice the space between black and white, where most people are trying their best. Most situations are more complicated than they first appear, and most of life is painted in shades of grey. How might this show up at work? The workplaces we admire are rarely built by people who always agree. They are built by people who can disagree without assuming bad intent, challenge ideas without attacking individuals, and change their minds when new information appears. Leaders who recognize nuance create cultures where people feel safer to speak honestly because they know complexity will not be mistaken for confusion. Teams that embrace multiple perspectives often make better decisions because they are less trapped by certainty. The next time someone disagrees with you in a meeting, pauses before making a decision or sees a problem differently. It may not be lack of conviction, it may simply be a different view of the same reality. Perhaps the strongest teams are not the ones that think alike, but the ones that become comfortable living in a space between black and white. Where in your work might certainty prevent understanding?